Hey, guys, Altavi Selza here, your voice manager with another episode of the Speak Easy podcast. Guys, I think it's safe to say that we've gone through some interesting moments throughout this year, and man, it has definitely made us look at a lot of the topics that used to be taboo, a lot of the topics that were being held behind closed doors and underneath shelves and hidden in closets to the forefront. And with that being said, one of the main topics that we've seen, especially with our children going from uh, in school to homeschool to trying to figure out what's going on to going back to homeschooling and then now integrating back into school, is the mental health, piece of it, is making sure that our children are okay. So mumpreneurs, women who are mothers in business, this episode is for you because we've heard your cry, we've heard your discussions and questions. Shout out to those of you who have been asking me questions, shouting me out, and giving me feedback on Facebook and Instagram, which are the top two ways that you can catch us. Go to World Voice League. And with that being said, I'm super excited about this particular episode because we're going to do a deep dive into some of the issues that have been going on when it comes to mental health of our youth, and then some things that we can do to really kind of help our children, even if they're not your biological children. With that being said, I'm going to say hello to our guest for today. How are you?
Hello, Altaviz. I'm absolutely wonderful and excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you as well. Oh my goodness. So let the Speak Easy podcast audience know a little bit about you, and then we're going to dive into today's topic.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Usha Chudasama. I'm a child and adult psychotherapist, and I'm the author of a Amazon best-selling book, Your Happy Child, 10 Proven Steps to Raising a Happy Child. I'm also a parent coach, and I'm really passionate about helping parents to, go through preventative mental health techniques for their children so that they don't have mental health issues when they're grown up.
Now, this has become a really important topic as we've gone and seen, man, our children have literally been stripped away from their normal, put into a new normal, only to be kind of thrusted back into what was, I guess, considered quote unquote the regular life.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
So when it comes to their mental health, what would you tell a parent is the first thing that they really need to be mindful of when it comes to their children?
I think it's really important to remember that children don't have the resources that we have as adults. So during lockdown, when they were forced, I mean, we were all forced, come to think of it, but children are forced to stay indoors. They can't go out to visit grandparents, friends. All their schoolwork was being done on Zoom, online. And so some of them were actually spending time on the screen for God knows 6 hours for school, and then later on they're playing on their Xbox or computer games. So they're on the screen all the time. All of that was affecting how they then behaved. There was lack of sleep, lack of interaction with real friends, not online friends, but real friends to play with. And that really did affect them. Altavis, I was getting replies from parents saying that they just don't understand why their children have gone from really lovely, angelic people to suddenly having that Jekyll and Hyde kind of character. 1 minute they're okay, next minute they're just having meltdowns. And, all of this was due to being trapped, being forced, being going through the uncertain times, watching the news, constantly. And they were getting worried. Children were getting worried. And on the flip side, parents were having to homeschool. They were having to, being a teacher role, they're having to work from home, run the household, and it's almost as if the roles. So, like, women were having to do the home chores, whereas the men were doing 8 hours on Zoom and then expecting that the the wife, the mother, had got the house in order, and it was just totally unrealistic. It was just totally unrealistic. And as we know, there's been a rise in domestic violence as a result. I mean, not directly as a result, but being forced to stay indoors and having to manage all of your frustrations. Everyone's home 24/7. There's financial problems. I know I'm painting a real grim picture here, but this is like the uh, the feedback and the stories and the comments that I was receiving from people, because like.
You know what? But that's honestly, that's the picture that needed to be seen. I think of the one of the things that was really important during
Mm,
this time was it opened up the eyes for parents to see their children in a learning environment. And I think as parents, a lot of times we don't like there's a disconnect. When
mhm.
our children are home, they're a completely different child. And when they're in a learning environment, they're a completely different child. Like we everybody loves to think that our child is just this amazing angel, right? Oh, 24/7. But but the reality is they're a different personality in the environments. And I think
Exactly.
for a lot of parents, it was eye-opening because you got to see your child in a different environment. And for some parents, it was really scary too, because
Mm-hmm.
you got to say, okay, my child doesn't sit still, especially
Yeah.
to the younger kids. You're like, so wait, but it also there was an aha moment for a lot of parents
Mm.
because when they first did quarantine, the programs were set up a lot different than when they went back for school in the fall. And so
Yes.
in school in the fall, they're literally sitting in front of the computer for the same length of time that they would be sitting in a school. And parents are like, why?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
understand why you can't sit still, but that's also what they're going through in school. Whereas
Yeah.
when they first came out, it was a little, it was a little sketchy because they only had to be there a couple hours a day and they had the rest of the day. So I think it was definitely some eye-opening moments. And yeah, it's the reality is that yeah, we've had a lot of grim reports. There's been an increase in child abuse. There's been an increase in domestic violence. There have been so many increases in the violent piece of it because there's no outlet.
Mm. There's no outlet, and the thing is that normally, I mean, when things were before lockdown, if there was an argument or frustration in the house, people were able to go out and let go of their steam. Whereas during lockdown, they couldn't do that. That it was illegal to go out, wasn't it? Um, so yes, there was this rise in abuse, and you're right. Children were um, in front of their screens for such a long time, um, and it's almost like now that they've gone back to school. I don't know what it's like there in the US. Have they gone back to school full time, or is it gone back to like a normal class time?
It's been bananas. So because every state is different and
Hmm.
then every city is different and then every school district is different, that it's really been crazy because some of them, the states have really, stepped in and said what we can and can't do.
Uh-huh.
For others, it's been the school district that have really set the bar for what it is that we can and can't do when it comes to, going back to the schools. And so it's for some, it's been phases that they've been going back. Some went back full time already. Some went back just
Okay.
virtually. And so that's another thing, here it is. If you have friends in another state, your friends in another state may be doing school online while you're in a
Mm.
building.
Wow. Wow. I mean, here in the UK, children have nationally gone back to school. Um, the thing is, the morning and the home times are staggered times. So they've gone in phases, like you've said, and they go home sort of 50. So, the top year groups go home maybe 15 minutes earlier, and then the middle groups, and then the younger ones go earlier. So they've staggered the time so that there's social distancing out in the playground. But parents have said that it's almost like um, they've grown up and the children have grown up, and now they're back to school. They're almost having to rekindle their relationship. The anxiety is still there. I don't know whether you're finding that, but that it's almost that reconnection is questionable, and they parents are still worried.
Well, I know a big one for the speaking industry and the
Mm-hmm.
author industry was that when the world shut down, because that's how we felt, right? We felt like we were all put on timeout. Speak Easy listeners,
Mm,
you guys know we felt like we were all put in the timeout corner. But when the speaking industry and the author industries kind of pulled back, what ended up happening was whereas parents for maybe 2 weekends out of the month would be
mm-hmm.
away normally, they wouldn't have that away time.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of there are a lot of speakers and authors and entrepreneurs
Mm-hmm.
that when they have that away time, sometimes that's their self-care time. That's their
Yes.
time to be able to kind of,
Yeah.
deprogram everything that they've gone through and come back a little more fresh, depending on
Yes.
how they set it up. Well, that was completely stripped away for several months. And I
Mm.
think that was a big trigger for a lot of people because they didn't know how to handle it. So you had CEOs and all of these business owners who
Mm.
couldn't travel to do business meetings and all of these different things or travel to the different locations. And
Mm.
because they couldn't, now they're home. How do we handle that? Where normally I'm gone for maybe
Yes.
a third or a fourth of the month.
Yeah.
Now I'm here. What does that mean? And so, yeah, it was really hard to
Yes.
maneuver it for a lot of people.
Yes. A lot of people say that they felt trapped. They felt trapped. And if you imagine an animal in a cage that feels trapped, it's just going round and round in a circle. Um, a lot of times that's where the frustrations happened at home. Just felt like you were going from one room to another to another. And there were lots of people who were just trapped in their house. I mean, in their flats where there is no garden, there is no outlet, you know? So it was very, very difficult. And you know what? These little stresses tend to build up. And if they're not dealt with, it can kind of lay dormant within us. So our children, basically, if it lays dormant, what we know is that these little tiny stresses tend to build up and build up and build up, but they don't actually show up until 10 years later, or it could be up to 10 years later. And that's what research shows. So these, even though we know what children need and what they should be getting, we're not in a place to give them what they need. Right, the authorities, the organisations that are meant to help them are already bulging at their seams, and then there's the funding element that there's not enough funding to deal with the minor cases. So it's only the serious cases that get seen and that get dealt with. So what about all of those children that have got minor anxiety in their eyes, minor anxiety? What can we do as parents? Do you know?
True indeed, true indeed. And so I know that you have a program where it's Parent Your Happy Child, and the Legacy Now campaign, which is really
That's
big
it.
because when we think about, so many people talk about legacy, they talk about the message that you're leaving. They're talking about the money that you're leaving, or land or
That's
property.
it. Yeah.
But man, it goes so much bigger when we think about the child or
Mm,
children that we're leaving behind, and how that is a part of your legacy. Are you raising them and kind of nurturing them in a way that you're leaving something great for them and within them?
mm, exactly. And that's the idea about this Legacy Now campaign. So it's hashtag Legacy Now. And what we're asking parents to do is really to spend a little bit of time. I mean, I know this sounds really simplistic and easy. In fact, if you think about it from a pandemic point of view, um, they told us, the governments told us to do the easy thing, and that was just to stay home. And that was so hard for a lot of people, right? Whereas this Legacy Now campaign is, again, it is actually really easy to do. Um, it's what we're doing is we're encouraging parents to spend at least 15 minutes of quality time with their child, and that's it. So that 15 minutes is going to help them to build inner resources. They'll have laughter, they'll have fun, they'll have joy, they'll have good quality memories that, of this pandemic time, because at the moment, remember, they've gone through a lot of stress. So if we spend at least the next 3 months, 6 months, longer if you can, um, to build those resources, build those foundations again, those inner resources, then actually you're doing your child a favor. You're doing your child a favor, and remember that your child is going to grow up. Your child is going to have children. So what you're actually doing is modeling a really good behavior for them as well. By playing with your children, you experience a closer bond, and it will open conversations, and your child will realize that you're going to always be there for them, because it builds that secure attachment, as you give them positive attention. So just imagine if a child wasn't given this playtime. According to research, that child, say for example, that child is 10 years old today. If we follow the trajectory, it will be about when they're age 20 before they even start to show some of these stresses come up as mental health illnesses. So what we're trying to prevent is that from happening. And also in 10 years' time, who's going to know? Who's going to be able to connect the dots back to this time? People will forget. We have such short memories because we are so busy. So the campaign Legacy Now is to spend 10 to 15 minutes of quality time with your children to prevent those negative messages and negative feelings, to filter as mental health illnesses later. It's a really easy thing to do. I've got a download. So if people go to download the campaign resource pack, and in that resource pack we've got about 25 different activities that you can do with your children, just as a starter point. And I am doing live Facebook lives, and sharing different activities that you can do with your children, and I'm including why those activities are good for positive mental health. So the first thing is download, second thing is play with your child, and the third thing, what we're asking people to do, is to take a photograph of yourself playing with your child and post that picture on social media using the hashtag Legacy Now. Maybe a little comment about what you're doing. And if you don't have a child, that's okay as well, because you could be a grandparent or an uncle or an auntie or a carer or guardian. And you can, if you have space and time for them, then take pictures with them. So remember, you can do this activity you could do any of those 24 activities and post the picture with the hashtag Legacy Now. Oh, the other thing I was going to say is if you don't have a child, then you can still support the idea of positive mental health by, maybe writing on a sheet of paper, I support hashtag Legacy Now, and posting that photograph. And hopefully we can spread that message to prevent these mental health issues from developing in the future. Do you think that's an easy thing to do,
It's a
Altabriz?
very easy thing to do. And Speakeasy podcast listeners, if you put in the hashtag Legacy Now, you'll actually see videos from me. I will be in this as well. And so
Oh,
you will see
brilliant.
videos. You'll be able to catch us on either TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook. Remember, hashtag World Voice League, hashtag Legacy Now. Either one of those, you'll be able to catch us. But follow the hashtag Legacy Now. Be sure that you post, because what we'll do is on the Speakeasy podcast, we'll come back and we'll shout out some of you who have gone and done and been a part of that. And we'll definitely have to do a follow up to this, because the reality is when we think about mental health in our children, we're looking at the right now, but we also
Mm-hmm.
are going to come back and talk about this in another couple months, because things are shifting again, and there, as things shift, there's always some new things for us to be able to implement and really talk about when it comes to the parent's mental health as well as the child. So with that being said, let them know once again the website so that way they can get the download, and also how they can connect with you online.
Yes, thank you. So the website address is www.parentyourhappychild.com, and if you / legacy now campaign sign up. But you can go to Parent Your Happy Child and there is a link there anyway. My Insta and Facebook is just Parent Your Happy Child. You'll find it.
Great. Speakeasy podcast listeners, this is Altaviz Pelzer, your voice manager. And I look forward to hearing your feedback on this topic. Is this something that you've had to deal with as a parent? Is this something you've had to deal with as a grandparent or as a guardian when it comes
Mm.
to the mental health of your child? We really want your feedback. Come join the conversation, bit.ly/World Voice Community, in order for you to tell us what you thought about this particular episode, and we will read your comments and your feedback on the air live. With that being said, we appreciate you guys, and until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.
Thank you. Bye bye.